All right, so here's a big question for you. As a recon Marine, you've gone through both Marine boot camp and recon Marine training. In boot camp, at the end of it, they have what the Marines call the Crucible, which is physically demanding, mentally demanding week of training. That's kind of a graduate course in how to be a Marine trainee.
Yeah.
And something that I see in people that I know who are both Marines and also Navy SEALs and people who have gone through really difficult training such as BUDS training or Hell Week, there's a rite of passage element that comes from that kind of situation where it's almost the worst that a human being can survive, and by surviving it, you gain this inner peace that the everyday challenges and the things that are not fun, that suck, suddenly suck a little bit or even a lot less, and they don't affect people that I see who have been through those situations. Do you have that same sense? Is that something that you see? And if so, like, expand on that and kind of talk about the way maybe that you were going into being a Marine and the way that you were coming out.
Yeah. I mean, if you think about it, like most other cultures, they have something, like some kind of rite of passage.
Rite of passage. That's
for, like,
really
young males. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's really the word that I'm looking for. Is the notion of a rite of passage.
Yeah, and we don't really have like anything. We don't have a whole lot of traditions because like our one thing about America is the United States, we're so diverse, right? So we got all these different cultural backgrounds, but we don't have, like, when you're 14, you go out into the woods, and we send you out with a stick and a knife, and you're going to be out there for 3 or 5 days by yourself. We don't have anything like that. And that's one thing that I was craving as a young kid in high school. I flipped the switch and all of a sudden wanted to join the Marine Corps. I needed that. I needed that kick in the ass. I needed a proving ground because I hadn't really been physically, mentally, and emotionally challenged like that, during while I was growing up, and there's nothing wrong with that, but I needed that at some point, and that's the way that I sought it out. So, for me as a kid, going into Marine Corps boot camp without a beard, I came out, with a beard, but also a belief in myself and an assurance that, I can be given a task and I can carry it out no matter how difficult it is. Now, with that said, I was actually pretty disappointed in the toughness level of the Crucible for Marine Corps boot camp.
Wow, that's a pretty top level statement there.
Because it's like I've been watching the Discovery Channel, Making Marines. I watched that probably about 300 times before I went in, and I was like, oh man, it's gonna be so hard. And yeah, part of it was hard. The biggest part was the hardest part was you're being bossed around by these by your drill instructors. But as far as like the sleep deprivation wasn't that bad because we were sleeping like 3 or 4 hours a night, something like that. So we were a little tired, and we walked a long ways. But looking back to some other stuff, like some of the things that we did on my deployment, Jesus Christ, 140-degree heat, zipped up, which means windows up, in a Humvee with no AC. Like,
yeah,
that's fucking brutal. That's like way harder than anything that I encountered in training. And recon school was a kick in the nuts, man. It was brutal, and you just think one more step, because some stuff is literally that hard. So, that definitely made a bigger impact. But I mean, I think that at some point you got to have those times to grab onto and to pull yourself through, tough situations.
Yeah, it almost seems like a center or a core that is built, and it was always in there, but you'd never touched it. So you couldn't know about it. And then after an experience like that, it's not demoralizing. It's just challenging on the most physical and even spiritual levels. And after a challenge like that, it's very difficult to feel affected because you found the center. And just like the center of the earth is not affected when someone jumps up or down. Yeah. The center of a person after an experience like that is not touched by the day-to-day challenges of life.
Yeah, I mean, and talk about empowered. When you overcome obstacles like that, man, how empowering. I've actually even got I've got my paddle from Recon, which is it's kind of a send-off gift that your buddies make for you, and it's more than that. It's kind of a symbol of your performance and commitment to the Recon community, and it's highly decorated. There's they do a weave all down the handle made out of 550 cord. It takes there's probably 15-20 hours of work. and that paddle. You know, there's a plaque on there, my ribbons. But I've got that hanging up in our house right now. And you talked about getting centered. Sometimes I gotta give myself a reminder because I get jaded, right? So I'll go and I'll look at my paddle, and it'll just kick it back in, like, hey, dude, like, you've been through some tough shit. Because as many tough experiences I've been through, sometimes I forget, you know, and I need
Sure.
that reminder.
Sure.
And I think that you always do, but it's definitely good to.
And that's a really great lesson too. And you know, it's like, even having been through you know, brutal training, sitting in a Humvee zipped up, I can't even imagine that at 140 degrees. Things are still going to try and get you down in everyday life, be that financial, you know, relationships, you know, just general, you know, life. There's a joke that life is pretty hard. I mean, eventually it'll kill you, and it's true.
Yeah.
And so to have that reconnection with that center, you know, even someone as accomplished as you is gonna at moments, you know, lose touch with that self-assuredness, but it's in there. You just gotta, you know, find that trigger that you know, puts you back in the middle.
Yeah, you're right.